Hey guys, it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I wanted to do a process video sharing a layout that I made from our beach vacation photos. And this is a challenge entry into Scrapsbyjen's 500 Subbie giveaway. I was inspired by one of her grid layouts, which I've never done before. Here I am just cutting out the intersection of a chevron paper and then cutting out a wood grain paper. That wood grain paper is from Recollections. The chevron paper, I believe, is from an Amy Tangerine sketchbook pad. And I've cut out some photos of my hubby walking with Bandito. And it was great because this was the first time Bandito was ever able to walk along the beach without being on leash. So I'll describe more of the photos as we go, but here I'm just trying to lighten up the background a bit and give it kind of a sandy look, and I just used another piece from the Amy Tangerine pad. I tore the edge, and then I'm using antique linen to distress the edge further. Here I'm laying it down on the bottom using my ATG gun. And I do like how that came out. It looks more like sand would look, and the wood grain paper was just kind of something for a little texture. Speaking of texture, I got a chance to use this really fun mesh that was gifted to me by Priscilla de Valle. It was really fun to use, and I like the look of it and the texture of it. It kind of reminds me of kind of fisherman's netting, or kind of something that you'd find along the beach. I mean, that would be because of pollution, but anyway, that picture right there is of Bandito after running and running and running all over the sand, all over the beach. He plopped himself down and just laid there looking at us. I decided I'm going to use more of that chevron paper, so I was really glad that I saved the inside so that I could frame, kind of match some of the photos and carry that black and white chevron throughout the layout. I futzed so much with different papers. You see me playing with some other pictured pattern papers. There's bone paper, there's shell paper, there's vellum. I cut out a lot of futzing from this video, but needless to say, it turns out much more simply, just with the chevron paper and some, I think, yellow polka dot paper that you'll see a little bit later. But yeah, I'm futzing and futzing and futzing, trying to figure out a good color scheme and kind of to represent the feelings. I use that chevron paper to mat all three of the photos. Here I'm playing with some cloud pattern paper, some music paper. Oh, and here's the yellow polka dot paper, which I really do like. And that is from the Neapolitan stack by Dear Lizzie. And what I do is I end up using Tim Holtz Distress Ink and Antique Photo to distress all of the yellow polka dot paper. And then wherever I use kind of blue or greenish kind of scraps, I use peacock feathers to kind of distress the edges of those papers. I really do think that distressing the edges with the inks really gives a nice finished look. And you see me futzing with more little scraps of paper. I was trying to use up my scrap box, and I did use some scraps up, but I think I made as many scraps as I used up. And here I'm just trying to get a good frame amount of that mesh and not have too big a border, because I want there to be space between all of the mats of the mesh between each of the photos, and so that I don't lose the kind of cleaner look of the grid, which was the whole point of this layout, which was inspired by Jen. And I do really like how the yellow and white and black all really go well together and don't detract too much from the actual photos. I'm just cutting out more of that mesh. And because it's such an irregular mesh, I end up layering in some areas kind of double and triple layers of the mesh along the edges of the photos, just so that it looks a little fuller. Here I'm taking some of the cut apart pictures from the Dear Lizzie Neapolitan stack, and I'm making all of the embellishments, you know, the kind of paper embellishments for this layout. I'm not sure where I'm going to use everything, and in fact I don't use this little banner one that says cheerful. I try to find a good place for it in so many different places, and then ultimately I don't use it. That little piece says you make my heart sing, and I end up using that, as you'll see later, but I end up making it into a pennant. This cut apart piece says let the fun begin, which I thought was perfect for this layout because the sequence of the pictures is actually of my hubby walking with Bandito on leash and then letting him loose off leash, which is fabulous. At St. George Island, dogs can run off leash on the beach. So it's so, so nice, especially when it's kind of empty off season, like when we went last week. And then the last picture is a picture of him just so exhausted and relaxing, laying down in the sand. I actually tried to get pictures of Bandito running like the maniac that he was on the sand, but all those pictures came out so blurry that, you know, I couldn't do 4 pictures for this grid. So that's why the one grid square is actually just some of the cut aparts. And here I'm just trying to lay down everything with my hot glue gun. The mesh is something that I don't think would have worked with any other kind of adhesive, maybe E6000, but that takes so long to dry that I thought the glue, hot glue, was the best. I was a little sad to cut away all the balloons from that cut apart that says let the fun begin, but it really wasn't going to work on this grid layout. And here you see me trying to make that little cut apart with the pictures of the seagulls flying in the air, cutting it down a little bit. Here I finally figured out what I'm going to do. I am going to make that last grid section just those cut aparts, layering them on different pieces of pattern paper to kind of make that one section not a photo, but something that goes with everything else on the layout. I'm using some foam adhesive just to give that some of those cut aparts a little bit more dimension and structure. And I felt like it was kind of fading away on that kind of cream background and the mesh. So I decided I'm going to add another background of the yellow polka dot. And then I still thought that it was too kind of pale by comparison. Here I'm just inking the edges with Antique Photo. But you'll see next that I end up using a little bit more of that chevron paper just to back the section that has the sentiment there. And I cut it just for that section of the of that embellishment, I guess, if you want to call it that. And I really do like how that made those words pop a little bit more. In fact, I really do like how that whole section of the grid came out. I was worried that, you know, it was going to not be as compelling kind of as the photos, but I thought it was a really nice compliment in the end. And I don't know where Priscilla got this mesh, but it is so much fun to play with and adds so much great texture. Here you see me just kind of trying to trim away some of the mesh so that it's not too big and doesn't, you know, detract from the grid look of this layout. Using more hot glue there. I've never tried a grid layout, but I really do like it. It kind of speaks to my OCD sensibilities. Here I'm just trimming away just a teeny bit of that aqua paper. I think it's like a polka dot paper that I had in my scrap box, because I thought it came off the edge just a little too much. And here you can see me kind of doubling up some of the mesh along that one side. And here I'm creating that little banner that I told you about, using that cut apart that says, "You make my heart sing." I'm trying to find the placement for it. I end up putting it up on the upper left corner because I want to cover up, I don't know if you can see it, but there's like a little umbrella, a beach umbrella there that I just thought detracted from the photo. So I covered that up with that banner piece. And then I thought, this really is a sequence, so I wanted to add the numbers, which I also got from the cut apart page from the Neapolitan stack. And I picked just numbers that I thought were kind of fun, interesting. The 3 was a little tricky because I didn't have one that wasn't a kind of a really, I don't know, a cleaner look. So I ended up using this one, which worked out fine. And I used the 3 little hearts in a row that was also from that cut apart sheet there. Here you just see me using some wet glue just to glue that down. And I inked all the edges of the numbers with just some black ink. Oh, I add a little bit of foam adhesive behind that 3 because of the distance now that has built up with the mesh, the different layers of paper and all that stuff. The foam adhesive was perfect to make that flat right there. And then I thought, it's nice, but in lieu of kind of using sequins, which a lot of people use, or ink droplets, I decided I had these tiny little shells that were gifted to me by Carrie, who's Carrie Lovecat here on YouTube. And so I thought I would use those. They were on, they're necklaces, and I just pulled some of the little tiny seashells off, and I hot glued those on. And then I thought I could put 3 in a row right there on that embellishment. This grid layout, inspired by Scrapsbyjen, was perfect for this sequence of pictures during our vacation. It really captured that moment, and I'm so glad I got a chance to scrap these photos. Thanks so much for the inspiration, Jen. And thanks for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed this process video, please give it a thumbs up. Bye.